The brain. Say cut a slice of it and eat it. What would it taste like? But more importantly, how much information would I be consuming? Well, in 2024, a group of neuroscientists at Google estimated that 1 cubic millimeter of the brain, that is 1/1,000,000th of a whole brain, could store about 1,400 terabytes of data. To put that into perspective, that is about 175 of the highest spec MacBook devices available. It puts people on the moon with 76 kilobytes of data. Kilobytes. To match that 1 cubic millimeter of the slice of the brain, we would need about 18 billion computers for the Apollo mission. Yet, with so much storage capacity, we can't seem to remember basic things. I mean, what is the last meal you had 6 days ago in the afternoon? You can't remember. You can't, right? God, I hope you didn't remember. Anyway, with so much information we acquire every day, we still keep asking more questions. We keep seeking more, only to forget most of it. Then we ask again, why? What is driving that? Why does your brain refuse to stop being curious even when it cannot hold on to what it learns? What makes us curious? The human brain contains approximately 86 billion neurons, with about 69 billion in the cerebellum, a region responsible for coordinating movement and motor actions. Around 16 billion are in the cerebral cortex, the part associated with thinking, reasoning, and learning. You might think, wait, we only use 16 billion out of 86 to think? That's so small. But that is more than half of the entire chimpanzee's brain, which has about 30 billion neurons in total. And we still share about 94% of our DNA. This explains why a chimpanzee is not the one making this video. That extra capacity, especially in the cerebral cortex, is what allows us to think, imagine, and ask why. But it still doesn't explain why we are so driven to know things, even though we tend to forget them. Well, there are two leading theories. One of them is the information gap theory. Say you are having a conversation with a friend and they say, bro, I need to tell you something. It's actually really important. Okay, what's going on? Nah, forget it. What do you mean forget it? You just said it's important. Yeah, but it's nothing. Nothing? You literally paused like you were about to confess a crime. It's just, I don't know, it's dumb. No, it's definitely not dumb. You already stressed me out already, just say it. See, this is why I didn't want to say it. Say what? You can't drop a life-changing announcement and just go silent. Never mind, seriously. Yeah, no, we are not moving on. I'm going to be thinking about this all day now. So, what just happened there is an information gap in a conversation. We are all curious now. We want to know what it was about to say. There is a gap between what you know and what you want to know. It's like an itch you need to scratch. It's the reason many video creators start with the phrase, have you ever wondered?
Have you ever wondered?
Have you ever wondered? Have you ever wondered?
Have you ever wondered?
Have you ever wondered?
What they just did was create a half conversation with you. They ask a question, your brain responds, usually with a no, and that creates an information gap that pulls you in. It's the same reason you're still watching this video. In simpler terms, the information gap theory says you need to know a little about something to want to know more, but it just has to be just enough. If you know too much, you lose interest. If you know nothing, you're not curious at all. There's a middle sweet spot. This creates an inverted U shape on a graph of curiosity and knowledge. The second reason we are so curious comes down to dopamine. Dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, but that is not quite right. In neuroscience, it is better understood as a teaching signal. It becomes active when something seems valuable or promising. It is a very common misunderstanding that dopamine is released primarily to reward us. While it is true that dopamine does play a role in reward, it is primarily a chemical that pushes us to seek things in the first place. Think of it as a motivator than a reward. In a 2014 paper published in Neuron, researchers showed that when people were curious about trivial questions, dopamine-related region in the brain became active before they saw the answers, before the reward. Which means your brain is not just rewarding the answers, it is rewarding the search itself. These two theories, the information gap and dopamine, are almost always at work in us, even as babies. In a 2017 talk at Google, Mario Livio shows an experiment that reveals just how curiosity works in babies.
So I want to describe to you an experiment here that was done at MIT. And the idea is the following. There is a very small child, and the child is shown a particular toy, and when the researcher presses a button on the toy makes a certain noise. And then you will see what happens after that. So she now presses that button and it makes a noise. So look, the child already wants it, already wants that toy. She presses the button again the noise. Now, the researcher shows the child that she has two other things that look similar, of different color. She puts one there and she gives the green toy to the child. The child immediately tries to press it and it doesn't make the noise. So look what the child does. Turns to his or her parent because she thinks, or he thinks, maybe I'm doing something wrong here. Now she's giving the child the yellow toy, which looks a bit different, but still has something that looks a bit like the previous button. So look, she will try, or he will try, to press it, but nothing happened. So now she says, maybe it's broken. So she bangs it, you see. But now she sees the red toy that's there on that piece of cloth. So look what she does, or he does. Look, whoop, and gets that.
So what we see is this. The child is introduced to the toy by a sound. That immediately creates an information gap. The child knows that the toy does something but does not know how to make it happen. So the child starts exploring, trying different ways to figure it out. But what's interesting is that if the child is given the original toy and can easily make the sound, the curiosity often drops and the child is no longer interested. So what we see is that it's not just the reward that drives curiosity, it's the gap, the not knowing, the almost getting, which raises an old question. Are children naturally more curious than adults, or does the world slowly train that curiosity out of us? Kids are notoriously known for asking why about almost anything and everything, sometimes to the point where it becomes annoying. And the absence of that in adults fuels the popular idea that we lose our curiosity as we get older. Well, science does not completely agree with that. In fact, it suggests something more interesting. In a 2025 study, researchers compared younger adults in their 20s with older adults in their 70s. They used trivial questions to track curiosity. For each question, participants guessed the answer, rated how curious they were, saw the correct answer, and then came back a week later for a surprise memory test. What they found was surprising. Older adults actually showed moment-to-moment curiosity, but it was a different kind of curiosity. Younger adults tended to show more of what researchers called deprivation curiosity. They need to close a gap to resolve uncertainty. Older adults, on the other hand, showed more interest-based curiosity, learning for the sake of learning. So it's not that curiosity disappears with age, it changes in a different way. It is also important to note that this study did not include children. But when you combine this with other research, it makes sense that as we grow older, we know more. And because we know more, fewer everyday things create that initial spark of curiosity. Adults are not curious about where babies come from because we already know. But we might become deeply curious about very specific areas like our work, our interests. our hobbies. And this is clearly seen in our innovative ability as a species. Our incessant curiosity is what allowed us to control fire, to create writing systems, to explore the microscopic world beneath our feet, and the galaxies far beyond us. We went to the moon. Voyager 1 is now 15 billion miles from the Earth, the farthest human-made object in existence. We built a global network just to share our curiosity with each other. And that is why I created this channel, because I know I am not the only one who cannot stop asking questions. This channel exists to explore those questions, strange questions, simple questions, and ones we might have in the bathroom. Like, I recently made a video where I explored what fire tastes like, and yes, I did taste it. You can check it out too. Now the goal is to wonder. So thank you for watching, and let's wonder.